Today, we're going to get started on our Yoda Legacy Lightsaber NeoPixel conversion. We're going to take this thing apart. We're going to see what all it's going to need to be able to make that conversion happen, including looking at the blade. So stick around. We'll get started on that next. That's right, folks. We are going to start today on our Yoda Legacy Lightsaber NeoPixel conversion. We're going to tear this thing apart. We're going to see exactly what it's going to take, what parts it has in it, how easy it's going to be able to do it, and just see what we can do with it. I haven't taken the stickers off for this one yet, so I'll probably do that while we're doing all this tearing apart and everything. We're also going to do with the blade too. I want to see what's inside the blade. I want to see how easy it's going to be able to convert it over to NeoPixel and go from there. So let's go ahead and jump over to the kyber cam. I'm not going to have my image on there, so it's just going to be just the teardown panel that we're going to use here and go from there, so that way you guys can see it, you can get a good view and see exactly what it's going to take. So let's get started with part one, the teardown. All right, so here we are with the lightsaber. Like I said, we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull these stickers off once we get everything torn apart, because I want to make sure I get all the stickiness, off the lightsaber housing itself. But let's go ahead and get the tools together that we're going to need to do this. I'm going to be using a mini screwdriver that I've got that's got multiple different size tips and things to be able to use, and we're just going to start pulling this thing apart. This is not the first time that I've taken it apart, so I've done it once or twice already, just kind of trying to get an idea of how easy it comes apart. And I got to find the spot that I used to pull this thing open the last time. There we go. So this piece here honestly just lifts up and pops off. Now there is some glue. I don't know if you can see the residue on there. So when you go to pop this off, it is going to be a little bit hard when you go to do it. Don't want to lose that. Just so you can see here, it's got residue. There's it looks like there's tabs there on it, but there's some raised tabs right here. So those will actually go in these little notches front and back over top of where the screw is at. So we'll go ahead and sit this up here out of the way. Now the switch is just a individual little spring that sits on top of that momentary switch right there. The momentary button. Ooh, that thing I'm gonna end up losing if I ain't careful. But it literally just sits on top just to give you, a little bit of springiness. Inside here, I don't know if you guys can see it. You roll this to the side. But this little piece right here inside the switch, that little plus looking piece on there, that's actually what pushes down on the switch. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I know that's where the spring actually sits. So with the spring, oops, let's get it back in there. So the spring actually sits inside the hole just like that. So that little piece there, that little plus piece inside, is actually what presses down. Now I did notice when I got this open the first time, this screw was a little bit loose. So if you are going to do one of these teardowns on this thing, you're probably going to want to make sure that screw is tightened up so that the little green plastic inside, which is actually what does this little green piece here, is not loose and rocking around and everything. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in the tray up here so I don't lose those parts. And that's what the inside looks like. You get a couple screws in there. So let me go ahead and grab my Phillips bit tip so that we can get that loose. I'll go ahead and take these screws out. this piece just lifts off. I'm just gonna leave these screws sit inside those slots right there so I don't lose those. And at that point, then you have the band that kind of moves around, and to go any further, you have to take that board out to get this off. However, before we get to that point, we need to take the emitter piece off the end down here. You got this emitter shroud. So this is actually a retention screw. It was a little stiff to get off the first time, and I'll show you why here in a second, but this just unscrews and comes off. And there's a little bit of glue, if you can see there. It's kind of hard to see on the metal, but there's a little bit of glue in that area right there that kind of held that in place. I would not recommend using anything like really like with teeth on it or anything like that. You just want to use your fingers so that way you don't mess up the plastic on that piece. And then you have the Allen head that's inside there. I don't know exactly what size that is because these are ones from my 3D printers. So I just went and grabbed an assortment, but it's a pretty small diameter Allen head. Let's go ahead and unscrew this. And you have this Allen screw that comes out, the little retention screw. So set that up there as well. Once you got that retention screw out, this whole piece right here literally just slides out. So you just kind of wiggle it side to side, and this whole shroud piece comes off. Now it is 3 pieces, so you have the actual retention piece that has the threads that hold the blade in place. You have the metal shroud that goes over the emitter end, and then you've got this little retention piece here. This is the piece that sits inside this little groove, just like that. The screw goes through the hole on there and screws into this. Now this is actually metal, so it's not plastic. So you don't have to worry about damaging that too much with the way it is. It does feel like it's pretty solid metal, like a piece of aluminum. So don't worry about that, but always make sure that you're careful whenever you're tightening stuff down. Last thing you want to do is strip something out. So we're going to sit those up there together out of the way. Once you've gotten to this point, then you've got to pull the board out. It's just these 2 screws that are here. So we'll go ahead and pull this board. And this is your switchboard. It does have a little, look, I believe an LED right there, so that way when you turn the power on, when you ignite the blade, it lights up that switch so you know that it's turned on. And then you just lift this up. It does have this quick connect that's on there. You have to be careful because you only have so much wire to play with. I don't know if you can see that very well, but there's very little wire to work with on there. So you just have to be careful in pulling that apart. What I did was, let's see, got a little pair of tweezers I've got here, and then just work it side to side. And you have your switchboard, which we're going to use that board in the conversion, putting in the NeoPixel Profi board, and then if there's room, we're going to put in a Bluetooth adapter in there so we can actually use Bluetooth on it as well. So then you just need to take this wire, carefully tuck it down in there. It's a little tight inside there, so just get it to where it stays down in there, and then this grip piece slides off. Now this is absolutely nothing to it. There's nothing on the inside. You can see here. Let me get it in the right place. There's nothing inside there. I guess it's just, little rivets to hold it in place. I'm not sure if at some point, if I decided to do it as a 2-button system, if I could make this into a toggle, or momentary button to actually have it to where you can tap that and change through fonts and anything like that in the future. So that might be a later upgrade. It does look like, and I know, let me turn some extra light on here, see if that helps for you guys to see. Might help a little bit more doing it that way. But there's actually a little hole. It's really hard for you guys to be able to see that. Down inside, right here, in between these two little notches, there is a hole right there, and that's what this little green piece here sits on the back side of. So that's actually the back side of this. So again, we might be able to make that in some point into an actual switch. So we'll get that set over to the side, and pretty much you've got the majority of it pulled apart at that point. From here, I mean, you can, this is a little stiff to get loose, and this is the speaker cover. I'm gonna go ahead and take it off, but I am gonna put it back on because I want to protect this speaker. I just wanted to show you. The speaker does have this little felt piece in here, and as you can see, it's a pretty basic little speaker. You'll be able to see it better whenever we pull the whole thing apart and see. But I mean, this thing's wafer thin. It is a thin speaker. A little bit. Okay, so anyway, as you can see, it's a pretty small magnet. It's like wafer thin, honestly. And so we may end up, or speaker, I should say, not magnet, but speaker. It's got a small magnet. I'm gonna look at the possibility of upgrading that speaker as well. You can see there in the threads, there's a little bit of thread paste on there or something to make it where this doesn't just thread out easily. It did take a little bit of elbow grease to really get that to pop loose. I mean, I wasn't sure if it was going to come loose at all. So this is the hardest part, is getting this piece off. It's very tight quarters in there. So we're going to go back to our small Phillips tip screwdriver here. And what I did was to try to make sure I didn't damage anything while trying to pop this off, is I actually ended up using just a piece of sticky note paper. You know, put it underneath the edge, just so when I'm going to try to pop this loose, I don't, scratch up or damage anything in there. But basically, I mean, this slides back and forth, and when you have it fully forward like this, there's actually a little channel on the side, and you'll see when I get this thing off that it's literally just a pop-up piece. It's got tabs on the side. There we go. So you got these plastic tabs that are on the edges there, and that just snaps down into these little grooves. But it's also what slides back and forth on these grooves to expose your charging port. So you got that piece there, and then you've got these couple screws. So let me change tips again. And these two screws here hold this retention plate. And you just take those two screws out. Set those to the side. And then this little retention plate comes off. It slides in. So it just lifts up and out. And you're just about done with tearing this thing apart. So as you can see, we're only about 15 minutes in. It doesn't take very long when you know the process. Like I said, I've taken this thing apart probably 3 times now just to make sure. Now you do have this Allen screw here. I will let you know that the 2 Allen screws that you remove are about the same size. However, I did have problems putting the wrong one in place. So I don't know if you can tell, but there is a slight difference in size between the 2 of them. So try to keep those separate, because you can't thread the longer one in where the retention screw goes for the emitter up here. So once you've got that screw out, I mean, honestly, you're pretty well done. So go ahead and take the end cap off. You got your felt piece inside the battery cover, and you can just push down from the inside with your finger, and the chassis itself slides out. And you're down to just the internal chassis. 2 screws holding that together. So let's go ahead and get the other screwdriver. Take these 2 screws out. Set those to the side. And at that point, basically you just stick your fingers in the end right here and lift up. Now, there is a piece of double-sided tape on the inside here that holds this top half on. Just be careful so you don't damage anything, but all you gotta do is just work it a little bit and it will lift off, just like that. You can see there the residue for the double-sided tape. It's actually on the back of the speaker. Now that was one of the things I wanted to see is, was I going to have room in there to put a better speaker in it, and it doesn't look like that's gonna be the case. So we're gonna have to see about doing that. As far as the battery, and I know that's one of the biggest questions people have had, here's your battery. It is removable, so you can just disconnect it and pull it out. I'm not sure if this is the same battery that goes in the Qui-Gon or the Palpatine, but let's see if I can get it to focus here for you. There's your battery. It's a 14430, 650 milliamp an hour, 3.7 volts, 2.405 watts per hour. This one was manufactured last October. So these are definitely, the battery at least has been done well in advance. Now I'm not sure when I go to do the Profi board if I'm gonna have to cut this little clip off, or if I can actually make a connection point that'll connect to the Profi board for the battery to go to. But here's your internal board. You've got your PCB that's there, which is a decent looking PCB. It is marked with B minus, B positive, so I'm guessing that's battery positive and negative. And then, which is your green. Green is negative, white is positive on there. And it looks like the orange wire may be the data line. It looks like it says I/O on it. Yeah. So let me just put it up here closer for you guys, see if you can see. Get it to focus. So your white is your B positive, your green, which the wire's kind of in the way, is your B negative, and then your I/O, I believe, is going to be your data line for it. Then looking at the board here, positive. This is your switch. So you've got, looks like your red's going to be your positive for there. Ground is going to be probably your black. And then the brown, I can't quite tell if there's actually information on the board. I mean, it's pretty small writing. So looking here, you got your LED A. That's the positive, that the red wire from the switch. Looking at it, the white, which is here, shows B positive on it. I'm trying to keep it focused for you. B positive, which is this connection here. Your I/O, your switch, says switch 1A is your brown, and switch WG, so I'm assuming that's your your ground for the switch is there. So yeah, so I guess your red is your power, your brown is your switched, and your black is your ground for it. Then you got your two speaker wires down here on the end. Now this does have internal USB-C built in, so what we're going to have to do is get a charging board, it looks like, to be able to have it where you can still use the charging feature through that port on this board, or on to go with the Profi board, to wire in and still be able to charge it that way. So that'll be one thing that we'll have to make sure and do. What I do like is it does have this little channel that this whole thing kind of sits in down inside there. I don't know if you can see that. It sits in there just like that. That's what holds it in place with that. So we'll try to utilize that same channel for the Profi board. Looks like, yeah, we should be able to make that work. We'll probably have to install it a little different, because we'll have to have the power switch on the top side, with the PCB sitting up here like that. We've got plenty of room in here to work with based on what it looks like. So I'll get the right charging board to work with this one here. So we may end up installing the Profi board down here, something like this, because it's got these little ridges in the chassis right here. See if we can't get it to where, you know, this will just sit flush down inside or something. I'd like to put a different speaker in here, so we may have to install it somewhere up further up. Something like this. Maybe notch out this little plate right here that this speaker sits on. Got an extra speaker here to see if we can't maybe get that to fit inside instead of this little wafer style speaker, especially with the fact that it's so quiet. I mean, you know, if you've listened to it before, I mean, this Saber is extremely quiet because of how small that speaker is. And inside this chassis, I'm wondering if they use this same style speaker in, you know, your battery chassis for your other lightsabers. This is the one for the the Skywalker. I'm going to do a conversion on Skywalker, the Graflex, or Graflex, however you want to say it, at some point as well. So that's how this is on the inside. The information that we've got here for it, the board that's in here, I swear they got so much room to work in here to make these so much better. I wish they would. So the next step is just to get the parts in and get ready to start cutting some wires and doing some soldering. Get things situated with that. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and take this blade apart and see. I've already got a couple of the screws pulled out. There we go. I've got to get this one here. I want to see what the internals of this blade looks like. See what it looks like in comparison to its larger big brother that we have. Let me get the light back on for us. There we go. We got more light to work with. So this is just a sleeve that slides up and down. Now I've heard that some people have had an issue where the blade doesn't go in quite right into the lightsaber. So if you're having that issue, look at these 4 screws. There's 2 here, and then there's 2 on the opposite side. Make sure those screws are recessed all the way in. You may just have to tighten them down a little bit. If it's sliding around like this when you try to do it, back them out. Just get them to where they're coming up right to the edge. You can rub your finger across it and see if you feel it or not. If you don't feel it, then you know you're good. Anyway, this piece slides off, There's actually a screw right here, I forgot that. So that's what holds the rest of it on the internals tight. So we'll set that screw to the side by itself. There we go, I forgot about that screw. And then it just slides out. Ooh. Got it stuck on my chair. So once you take that screw out, it just slides out. You've got the foam insert that the actual LEDs sit in. We'll try to be careful because I don't want to damage the blade in any way. Make some room here for it to sit. So then you just have these two screws here that hold the rest of the where the PCB board is at. So just so we don't have it flopping around, let's slide that back in a little bit. We'll go ahead and take these two screws out. Set those down there with the blade, rest of the blade screws. All right, and then just stick your finger or something in there and pop it loose. One side's going to come off easier than the other. So we'll set that there. And this is the inside, the internals of the blade itself. Now this PCB does stick in here a little bit on one side. You can pull it out. When you go to put it back together though, and let me get, because there's a notch right here that sits inside the PCB or the controller board on the blade. So you have to work, there we go, work it loose. Anyway, there is a notch you can see right here on this PCB. And this one, this side does not have the notch, whereas the opposite side actually has a notch. I don't know if you can see here. Get up here where you guys can see it better. You can see it has that little tab there. That little tab will sit inside that little notch on the PCB, so that's the way that you know you've got it lined up and everything done right. Anyway, so this is the blade. Now, if you've looked at any of the other Legacy lightsaber blades, this is honestly a smaller version. The LEDs are much smaller. I mean, this LED strip right here is, I mean, essentially it's only like a 1/4 inch wide, I believe. Let me grab my tape measure. I mean, it's literally, yeah, it's a 1/4 inch wide. That's all it is just a 1/4 inch wide. So finding LEDs that are going to be only that wide is going to be a little bit of a challenge. So what I may end up doing, being that this is going to be controlled by the profi board inside, is may just unsolder these connections here and try to reuse this LED strip inside if I can't find any LED strips that are going to be strong enough to do that. Because I have seen one guy, Chris from Chris Edge Kybers, that did a conversion, and I believe he used the original LEDs and was able to produce the other colors and stuff. I don't know how it does as far as like the smooth ignition and smooth turn off, you know, if it does the sections or if it actually is smooth or not. So that's something we'll try and we'll have to play with. You got your PCB wires on here and everything is marked. You got your in, you got your volt positive, which is white, volt negative, which is green. I'm assuming the orange is your data line. So just we'll when we go to pull it apart, yeah, orange is the IO on here, so that'll be your data line. So we'll probably end up having to solder that to the pins on here in some way, figure out, you know, what the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it looks like SSA on there. figure out what those are all listed as on there. Figure out what those connections are on the board, and go from there. I'll probably pull up this board number, see if I can't find some information on that, and figure out what sends power to what on here. And heck, I may, when I unsolder this and everything, it may actually show me on the other side what those connections are in conjunction with the ground and all that kind of stuff. So we'll figure that out. Anyway, that's what the internals of this blade looks like. So yeah, well, we got some stuff to work on. All right, so we'll go ahead and we're gonna get the parts ordered, get some LED strips coming in just to see how they're gonna fit. We're gonna figure out, we're gonna get some things desoldered and all that stuff. That'll be in the next video. I'm assuming this video series is probably gonna be 3, maybe 4 videos long as far as the actual build. We shall see. Well, I do appreciate you guys stopping by and you know, giving me some time out of your day to take a look at how this is going and how to do it. I'm hoping this information will be helpful for you guys. So don't forget, down in the corner, hit that like and subscribe button down there. Hit that notification bell. Hit it, make it where it says all notifications are on, so that way you get notifications when these videos go live. You don't miss the next part of this video series. So again, thanks for stopping by. I do appreciate each and every one of you. If you want to see my other NeoPixel build, check out this video playlist up here in the corner. Till next time, may the Force be with you.